been 5 days since that terrorist attack on a passenger train in Kaduna State, northwest of Nigeria, during which many people were killed, many others injured, while a yet-to-be-determined number, estimated by some sources to be in their hundreds, were abducted by the daredevil terrorists. Daredevil because witness accounts by some survivors who have spoken to the media and debriefed by the security agencies claim that the terrorists looked like boys in their late teens and early 20s. Again, the almost inevitable confusion about how many passengers were on that train and how many of them were captured by the travel manifest continues to dominate what will have been a period of critical post-mortem and evaluation of priorities, especially on the part of the ministry in charge, the security agencies, and the Nigeria Railway Corporation. For a conversation, we are now being joined by Kolawole Johnson, Head Research Strategy and Programs, Act for Positive Transformation Initiatives, and a Public Affairs Analyst. Good morning, Kolawole.
Morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
And it's good to be here again. Thank you.
Good to have you. Well, let's talk security and insecurity. We know what's going on in the country, what has happened in Kaduna during the week, has again exposed certain lapses in the security apparatus of Nigeria. In your own assessment, what do you think we got wrong or we keep getting wrong? And how should we begin to take the issue of terror a lot more seriously?
Well, first, can I call the assessment my private assessment? I think we can have private interpretation, but the assessment is, it's actually in the open is what we all know. We know that we need to do more regarding our security situation. The fact is, at this point, I don't think I would like to join in a blame game of you should do this, you should have done that. We should, going forward, ensure that the government do not just make statements and we stop at that. We should hold them accountable. For example, I remember when, of course, let's even look at the indices on the table right now. When this happened, the following day or thereabout, the governor of Kaduna State said something. He said they actually envisaged this, and they informed the Minister of Transportation to please halt late evening trips of the train. And I think we did not heed to that advice. So if we can extrapolate, if we could see based on the prevailing situations that this could happen, why didn't we take action? Number one. Number two, the minister fired back to say that he requested for some surveillance to be released, some funds, to be released to him for surveillance equipment, and they were not. He didn't get the approval, and he kind of sent the signal that it was blocked. Whereas, if you dig deep also to that, if you're going by David Easton that says politics is authoritative allocation of value, behind that allocation is that responsibility to ensure that you do not just allocate, you allocate to the best ability of the state. If you're presenting what is not in tune with best practices, you don't expect that to go simply because you want to, protect lives and properties. Now, after it was rejected and the FEC asked for further details regarding that, has it represented it? So I think based on these things we have seen, we know that there are lapses in the government. And if these had been filled, I don't think we'll be here today. And unfortunately, the lives of Nigerians, innocent citizens that should be protected by the government, perhaps they are the pawns on the field here. And the earlier we hold the government accountable to do its job, the better for all of us. The blame game must stop. They must get back to work. Incidentally, we've seen a lot of improvement in the operations of our military lately. I can say that because, of course, we have followed very closely. We have data to show that they've done tremendously well these days compared to the past. I remember a time like that, we were very loud, shouting, screaming to the top of our voices that the security network, we were not doing enough. But lately, they've been scoring a lot of goals. So this is a very huge setback that I think it won't be a situation where we think we are being overwhelmed. No, it was just failure of intelligence, failure of strategy, and failure of acting in time. That's it. So my assessment will be the general assessment that the government needs to do more.
Understood. I mean, absolutely. I think everybody can agree that the government needs to do more, but it's a question of what exactly does that mean? What does that help look like? What does that response look like? You know, in the aftermath of this train attack, we did hear calls for Nigerians to take up arms. And when you do hear that, it does underscore the severity of the issue, but it also shows you, first and foremost, that that is a dangerous, as many people have put it, a dangerous alternative to the situation at hand. But it also speaks to the desperation at hand, because perhaps many people are running out of options as it pertains to how Nigerians can go about their day-to-day lives without this serious threat of death and terror on them. So I do want to ask you what your thoughts are on that suggestion that Nigerians should take up their own arms, or perhaps also if you could also share your opinions on the use of mercenaries. What do you think? How does that make you feel as a Nigerian?
You know, it is, making statement at times. We may not, perhaps out of emotions, we may need to, think deeper to see the import of those statements. Policies, they are not just made because you're emotional. No, we must think about it deeply. Don't forget that man is always a creation of its environment. Whatever idea you have, it should be situated in that environment to see if it will work. Now, considering the kind of population we have, youth, aggressive youth, perhaps unemployed, jobless, angry, and you want to legalize arms and ammunition, I don't think we will stay beyond 6 months before we blame ourselves. I don't think that's the best approach to this. Now, what would be the best approach? One, I think this may be personal. We've seen some trends that we need to stop. When you have a group of people in a certain community trying to police that community against the invaders, against criminals, we've seen instances where the security agencies, where the government will swoop on them, take them out, and perhaps, at times, in the raid, some killed, they take over their, arms. And at the end of the day, terrors are unleashed on these communities, and the government will not be able to help. So if we have, since we do not want to accept the fact that we need the state police now, even though most of the security work, the expenses are made by the state governors. If we channel the same money that the state governors are pumping into the federal security, framework to state police, I think would have been doing much more better. But since we are not ready for that, one thing we can do is to ensure that we should encourage community policing in whatever guise, as long as we can ensure that they are not only registered, but they are monitored. I think most of these people, they are from communities. If we have sectional empowerment, group empowerment, I think that would be better than legalizing arms and ammunition across board. No. You have in Southwest, for example, an Amotekun that is also meant to complement the effort of our security agencies. I don't think it is good for us to deny them arms and ammunition when you know that they are not facing, some guys who are playing. They are facing criminals. That is one. Number two, we should also ensure that we do not politicize this threat to even the sovereignty of this country. Look at this. I remember when a governor made an open statement and said on national TV that some people should carry their arms without even license to show. because they have some, no, because they have a responsibility of protecting some animals. And by the time you talk like that, some people are emboldened. Number one, you have a situation where a sitting governor says or said that these guys are only, that kidnappers are only businessmen, that they are not threatening the country as some people, were doing in some part of the country. What do you think you're doing? In PR, you are only strengthening and emboldening these guys to do more. Now, when you have a situation where, where these utterances are not checked, you have a citizen who said that you better go and settle these guys. If not, kidnapping will come more. Now, I doubt if we are sensitive enough to know that most of these words, most of these actions, they have effect on these guys. They are emboldened more. See, you don't have to give them arms to get them emboldened. Simple encouragement are getting these guys emboldened. And unfortunately, the people that they come against are helpless. So as much as I think that we've done a lot of things wrong, I don't think it is advisable for us to license arms for everyone. No, we can't all take up arms. For example, Nigerians, you need to say our temper. Get to Lagos, your city, and see how people react when they bash themselves. Get to some cities and see how people react when some few things happen. Look at these young guys who are into Yahoo, who are killing themselves. Can you imagine guns in their hands? We are not safe. Somebody, can just look at you in the traffic and, put a bullet in your head, perhaps because you say waka. So I don't think the environment is right for such. So for me, as much as we do not like what is happening, we should not also arrest it by something worse. That's my view anyway.
All right. I totally agree with you. It doesn't look like we're ready for that kind of a thing. And if you look at even the US, where guns are licensed, they are still struggling with it. But my follow-up question to you is to, again, draw attention to what else that are needed to be done. If you recall, last year, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, wrote an important article in the Financial Times where he said that military might alone cannot defeat terrorism. And he said that we would just have to make it a global issue so that people can come to assistance. So my question to you is, how much more do you think that can be done? Do you have an idea of what the president had in mind when he said that military might alone cannot defeat, terror? And I'm saying this given the new statistics, that is out about 1,545 people in Kaduna, Zamfara, Niger, and a few other states dead as a result of terror attacks and bandits attacks in 90 days. If you stretch it till the time that COVID-19 started in March 2020, it will mean that more people have been killed in Nigeria by terrorists than by COVID-19. So we've got a major issue on our hands. People are dying, but then we are talking intelligence. We are talking, let's use other methods apart from military might. What else, therefore, do we need to do? And how should it be channeled, by the government?
Doctor, I learned something from the late Prof, former VC of FUTA. He said that governance is not a popularity contest. See, when you get to some critical season, times, governance, it's a different ball game. You're not measuring popularity. You're not trying to see, how popular you are among the people. You take the right decision. For me, I believe with the kind of country we have and the kind of environment we have, if we do not take a decisive action first before we bring anybody to the table, we'll be shooting ourselves much more. I remember some, last year, the year before, you see some governors openly taking photographs with these guys. And of course, they were happy. But what happened thereafter? Has that been able, to in any way stop this killing? No, it hasn't. So it tells you that on the table, you need to decimate the strength that they have before bringing them on the table. For example, I don't think this is something too strange. Let me also quote Malam El-Rufai. He said the intercept is on tape. He said on tape that they intercept their conversation. They have intelligence on them. They even know what they plan by the virtue of, intercepting their communication. So if we do all of this and we know their location, when some people want to lead you to go talk to them, they know where they are. Now, we may not be able to take some decisive steps without some casualty. That's part of it. We need to just accept that. If we trace where they are, let's do what we need to do once and for all. Else, they will keep taking people and be increasing their population inside this forest, and will make such steps, more difficult for us to take. It is not a rocket science. You know where they are. Fish them out and knock this guy out. By the time you decimate them, if you have some remnants that you now want to demilitarize, you want to bring them to the table to be able to perhaps change their orientation. That's a different ball game. That you think a man who was earning 1,500, 2,000 naira before, who is now used to having some millions transferred to him just in bulk like that, you think he will live that life or to come back to the street where perhaps he'll be begging or be looking for some 5,000, 10,000 naira? That will not happen. You need to show him already that he is faced with death on that path if it doesn't change. But as long as you leave him with all his strength and you think you want to negotiate with him, I don't think that's the way to go. First, we have the strength, decimate them. And I bet you, if we've been doing what we've seen in the last few months before now, I think would have gone farther than this. So I do not think that as much as the president may be right, that you don't fight terrorism with the guns alone. The gun is the first. Show them the gun first. Take away their strength. Then they will be submissive. They will be humble enough to come to the table with you. Know that
interestingly, Kolawole,
when they are strengthening,
sorry to cut in. Interestingly, that is also the position of the Kaduna State Governor, Malam El-Rufai. And in fact, in the media today, he has said that he will be forced to bring in foreign mercenaries to assist if the federal government fails to do precisely what you're asking them to do, decimate them totally. So he's saying that he will have to bring in foreign mercenaries to assist in fighting them. Do you think that that would be the right way to go? And if each state governor starts bringing in their own mercenaries, are we not likely to compound the problem? Or what would be your thoughts on what Malam El-Rufai is saying?
Okay. Now, when you have when issues are not addressed in time, they always dovetail to crisis. And when you are at that stage of crisis, there is no solution you bring on the table that will not have some side effect. You take the one with the least side effect. So if you look at the two options we have mentioned, the first is to let every citizen take up, arms. We said, no, that won't be fair. So this is very similar to what I suggested earlier. Let's have some organized empowerment so that these guys can take them out. If it will come through external machinery. I have heard people saying true federalism. Which one is fake federalism? It is either you are practicing federalism or you are not practicing federalism. Now, I am not saying that we must follow a certain system of government. No. After all, the U.S. did not start with the same, process. They started with confederation before they got to that federalism. So, if we need to craft our own form of governance based on the demand of the environment, I am not against that. But when we say we are practicing federalism and the units are not having the independence they should have. We are not practicing it. So the governors are called the chief security officer of the state, and they are just there they are just there. They have no control. So if you to take a state governor that is called the chief security officer, external mercenary to bring peace in a state, so be it. Isn't that better than losing people day and night? I think that is better. So for me, as you know, I have always admired Malam El-Rufai, but I don't think lately I've seen that, that thing that made us admire him. Then, so if this is where he will prove himself once more, excellent. I think we should have it. In fact, we should all support that. Perhaps that will show the federal government the way that this is not a rocket science. We can actually end this killing. We can end this kidnapping. We can end this state of insecurity. It is not a rocket science to do. So perhaps it should show the way and just tell the federal government how to do it. We will support that. All of us will do that. Thank you.
Earlier, before this situation continued to deteriorate, and when I say earlier, I mean last year, the year before, there were calls for more holistic solutions to this problem, perhaps offering amnesty to terrorists, and that definitely happened. You did see crowds of seemingly young men coming over, turning themselves over to authorities, and then there being some form of rehabilitation which led to them being released back into society. I mean, even during that time, there was legitimate criticism. Perhaps the issues of risk and recidivism wasn't properly addressed. There's always going to be the chance that these people who claim to be reformed or who have asked for amnesty may well go back and continue their nefarious acts once they are released back into society. Talk to me about what you think would constitute a viable holistic solution, and whether or not you think that amnesty program worked, whether it's something that should be used in this instance again. What can be done?
You see, my views on governance, perhaps because of some few persons we've been exposed to. I don't believe in free meal. I don't believe in just handing out things to people, But each leader has its own ideology. That is why a lot of times, or when we are choosing people to power, especially to manage the affairs of the country, we should know, or we should have an idea of what the man stands for. I'll give you an example. In Tanzania, you have a man called Julius Nyerere, who was a teacher in Walimo. Now, by the time he got to power, he brought that to bear, and he came about having a country that is well educated, but not just education. He called it education for self-reliance. So for him, the ideology he's bringing is that you must not just educate people, but in a way that they must also have, skills to be able to be self-reliant. So that's an ideology. Now, coming to this place, what's our ideology behind amnesty? Is it just to continue to throw some things on the table for some people for the rest of their life, while the rest, are left to suffer? I don't think that should be the way out. For me, if you bring this guy, what we were against was a situation where you're bringing some guys directly from the bush, and you want them to join the army. You want them to travel out and enjoy all the luxury of life. While the people they killed their fathers, their daughters, are languishing in IDP camps. That was what we cried against. That you don't just bring this guy out and give them the best of life. They have done the wrong thing. Even if you don't want to give them the full punishment of what they have done, at least let them not feel, too separated to luxury that much. So that was what we cried against. If you bring them for amnesty, and that will only last for a while you train them in what they can do, I think that would be better than just giving them handout for the rest of their life. Who told you that at the point they won't get tired of this and also move back to the bush? For me, it's a two-way approach, and we can't run away from that. Take this guy out, decimate them once and for all. The remaining ones, they will lose the energy. In fact, Fear will not even let them go back to the bush. So when you have that, they can be submissive enough to listen to you and to be trained and to, and to drop their arms. So for me, that would be the best way out, rather than just encouraging them to just come out and take the best of life, even when they know that they can also have something better in the bush there. So we should do something much more better than just handing them some, some money in the name of amnesty.
All right, Kolawole, I mean, I acknowledge and I appreciate the fact that you highlight also the fact that in the past few months, our military have actually not done too badly. They've been on the offensive. I guess this is part of the marching order that President Buhari keeps giving. Another angle to this is to acknowledge that the terror thing is also, in the manner that we are encountering it here, is also not limited to Nigeria. However, the danger to acknowledging that will be that in Mali and in Burkina Faso, the spate of insecurity there led to successful coups. We now have military taking over government in those two countries in West Africa. My question to you is, how close are we to avoidable anarchy? And how can this be the main talking point now that we are preparing again to choose another leader for 2023? How can we avoid the sort of, what led to the coups in Burkina Faso and in Mali? Because if it gets to a point, you have a governor saying, I will need foreign mercenaries. You have others saying, let us have a president that can make security his number one agenda. How can this, be the main issue leading into the 2023 elections and getting the right person? Even though we had a general as the president, we've had him for 7 years, what else will we need to do in terms of the person who will be the commander-in-chief for the next 4 years, from next year at least?
Well, okay. That's a very, very tough and deep question. And I'll try to maneuver and run away from specifics. Okay. I think to the first part of the question, we have all the indices, practically all, for instability, insecurity, insensitive political class, high level of corruption. Forget the farce that this government is fighting corruption. We have proven that the government is not fighting corruption. And if they want to contest that anytime, I can go for public debate on that. And I will not just talk. I will come with fact and figures, not one agency, not even two, not even three. You can imagine if the sitting State Minister of Petroleum is saying that he's also confused, he's also not, not in tune with the number of liters that we consume daily in this country. He said at the time it went to 90 million. You and I know that is falsehood. So you have corruption in major area, practically. See, this government is superintending over corruption, so that's taken. So you have all these indices for instability. But the only thing is this, is that you have a general in office who seems to, who appears to be enjoying the loyalty of the military guys. My fear is after him, can we survive if the situation remained this same? I doubt it. So if you have a military man in power, perhaps his factor is keeping those guys at bay. I think we may not be that lucky. I'm not saying that we will have that. I'm not saying we should have that. And I'm not saying we should not. See, okay, let me not make some statement. However, people keep saying democracy is the best form of government. We should subject that also to debate. Let's interrogate that further. This kind of waste in the system, the kind of waste we have daily, from the National Assembly to the executive. I think we should also try to sit down, aside from always trying to contest for power, and redesign our democracy to be able to fit into our system. For example, you have China practicing command capitalism, command democracy, and it seems to be going well for their country. I'm not saying we should have dictatorship, but if the system we have is not working well for us, there's a need for us to change it. Perhaps we'll need to experiment with a parliamentary process. Maybe we start from that and see if that will help us. But as long as we continue like this, I doubt if we will escape from something, similar in the future. I wish I could say God forbid, but who says I will say that? I don't think I'll say that. So let me move to the very next point. And that is the next election. Who should come to power? Nigeria is at a stage, at a point that I won't call it precipice, but I think we need serious rescue as a nation. Let me give you one area that we all need to ponder on. Right now, the debt profile is terrible. And a time will come that every single income we make as a country may go into debt servicing. To pay salary may become difficult if things continue this way. So we need somebody quickly who can do 2 or 3 things. One, that can at least, if you cannot end it, try to eliminate corruption to a certain extent. Right now, you heard that 80% of all of the oil we produce ends up in private pocket, the money. Now, you know that for every 10 naira you vote for anything in Nigeria, perhaps 70, 75 naira will end up in private pocket. You will not get more than 20%, 25% of the value of the money that you spend. And these days, we have so abused the procurement process. For example, I know that some years back, the World Bank spent a lot of money on governance reform in Nigeria. And one of the areas they spent money on was this procurement process. But right now, we abuse it. That was why the minister said that he went to Bureau of Public Enterprises to just get some certificate of no objection. Objection. They just get that even for 3 billion naira contract that should be subjected to, competitive bidding. But somebody will just go get something and you get it awarded. And you think we'll get the best from that. No, we cannot. So for me, I think you need a person who can tackle corruption squarely. And that was one of the reasons we campaigned and voted for President Muhammadu Buhari, but unfortunately, he hasn't done that. Number 2, now it's an extension of that. You need to end. It pains me to have to interrupt you
as you go into your second point there, because we have run out of time. But Kolawole Johnson, we do want to thank you for what's been quite an insightful conversation. Thank you for joining us this morning.